You're not going to believe what Bill Armstrong had to say on the eve of free agency and the draft. He may have given away the entire summer for the Utah Mammoth.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in once again to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and thank you so much for joining us and making Locked On Mammoth your first listen every single day when it comes to the Mammoth Hockey Club. Now, Robyn had a great chat with Will Scouch yesterday. If you didn't see that, pause this video now, go back and watch that, then come back to this moment because Bill Armstrong spoke out on the draft, on free agency, gave us an awful lot to talk about, including what's going on with Marchand. Is there an offer on the table? There's a McBain update tucked in there. And Bill Armstrong met with the media the other day, Robyn, and spoke for, I think it was like 17 minutes. But there is a 2.5-minute clip that I'm going to play for everybody here. And then I want to get your reaction to as well as we get into it. But it kind of outlined the entire summer, I think, for the Utah Mammoth, starting with the draft. Robyn, I think it's starting to kind of become a reality that the number 4 pick's probably not going anywhere. And this is not necessarily in that clip I'm talking about, but you know, you do your due diligence, you listen to what everybody has to say. But I got the impression that Bill Armstrong is not in a hurry to unload this number 4 and probably hasn't heard anything he thinks is worthwhile.
We're a team that has a lot of options because of, you know, our particular, we've got some prospects in the house, we've got some picks, and we've got some following picks, some extra picks the following year. So there's a lot of options for us, and we're going to explore every option to make sure our team's a better team when we start to play in the fall. You know, I think as far as the free agents in that, we've always kind of firmly believed that if the right free agent's there, we'll sign them. Money's not an issue. We're also at a point with the club, though, that, you know, it's not our final piece we're adding. We're still building, and one of the things you have to remember is that, you know, you've got Gunther, who plays major minutes for us. He's a young player. Logan Cooley's a young player. You know, and Josh Doan's a young player, and, you know, now we're going to put, you know, Simachev and But, they're going to come in, they're young players too. Most times you don't win in any, you know, a championship until your guys are 27, 28, 29, and you look at the McDavids and the Dreisaitl's and the Kachucks and all the guys that are having massive success at the NHL level, the Barkovs, they're not 21 years old. So we have to live in the reality of we've got good players, we've got to add players around, but we don't necessarily need to sell the farm for a 31-year-old, a 35-year-old for $40 million to come in and kind of clog our team up, and then we can't make the signing when we need it. You know, when it's the last piece we need in 5 years to add. So we do have to be smart about it. I've always said this. You know, you see those teams last year that they won the summer, they crushed it. They didn't win the winter. You know, so. There's a little patience with our club because we are young, we are maturing right in front of your own eyes. You know, we're going from, you know, we're going into high school next year. How does that sound? We're going from the 8th grade to the 9th grade, and here we go. You know, so you just want to be smart about it, and you know, we do get excited about, hey, we could add this guy and that guy, but not if it's going to hurt us 5 years from now, and you guys are coming to saying, hey, does that $9 million to sign that guy, does that hurt us now? Yeah, it does. It's $9 million we could have added in the final piece so we go compete for a Stanley Cup. So there's a little patience in the process that you have to have. You know, and sometimes during that patience, you don't win the summer, but you take a step in the in the fall, and that's what counts.
Robyn, there is so much in that 2.5 minutes. So I want to get your reaction to that clip and what you think.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because Bill Armstrong kind of makes a lot of points that I think we've talked about kind of already, right? We've talked about the youth of this team, and we've talked about how what we see where this team is going in the next couple of years, how they're going to go to be competing and going to be in a playoff spot. But they're not there yet. They're not going to go out and make full on, going to buy now mode, because that's way too soon to do that. Right. And it's really interesting that that Bill Armstrong is being able to talk about this. Like, yeah, we have the money, but we have to make it at the right time. We have to make the right picks. It has to matter. It has to make sense to the team to make this move. And again, so the point being said is, I mean, to me, it's everything you said. It lines up with what we've been saying, what we expect this team to do this offseason.
It's funny. I took notes on that second. I've listened to that now 3 or 4 times. And even now, while I was listening to it again, I jotted down more notes on top of my notes for everything that he said. So I'm going to go point by point here through the things I picked up just in that 2.5 minute clip. This clip is intense for how much information he dropped in here. Number one, Simachev and But are pretty much on the team next year. That was in one of those sentences. He says now they're going to come in and they're young players, after he talked about the other young players, the Gunthers, the Coolies, and making the point that, as you made the point, and we have talked about, it's a young team. They are progressing. They should be contending for a playoff spot next year, not contending for a Stanley Cup. So, but that's interesting because that's 1 forward and 1 D spot now taken. Now we know that the boomerang is gone in free agency here. And I'm going to talk about McBain a little bit later on, talk about Marchand, because Marchand plays into all these notes I have here. The other one that I thought was interesting is basically saying Utah is not old enough to win a Stanley Cup yet. So and then the next line is won't sell the farm for a 31 to 35-year-old, pay them big term. That tells me that whoever they might go after in free agency has to be in their 20s with plenty of leg in a 7-year contract. You don't want to buy you don't want to buy 2 good years and then pay for 5 bad ones, because that's not where Utah is. You want them to be hitting their stride in year 4, year 5 of this contract. So that I thought was interesting, but this is going to bring me to Marchand a little bit early here on this bullet point. Robyn, that's who he is. He's a 35-year-old, actually 37-year-old guy. And we keep hearing reports, and from legitimate sources as high up the NHL food chain as Elliot Friedman, saying Marchand has plenty of interest from Utah. But I hope he's the fish that gets away if that's true. Number one, I hope it's not true. But number two, if it is, I hope he's the fish that gets away. Because I've said it before, he's not that guy for this team. They're not there.
No, they're not there yet. I mean, we've talked about in a previous episode, Tom, whether or not Utah needs a pest on their team. And I mean, I think you and I have come to the agreement. We're like, the answer is a yes and no answer, right? It kind of a little mix of both. The answer is yes, but not until it's like their final piece, and it kind of will be that slight edge to kind of get them to that Stanley Cup winning spot, to kind of get them over that edge. They're not there yet. I mean, getting a player like a Brad Marchand would be huge. I mean, like I said, I hate him, but if he's on your team, you love him. But I think even more so at the amount that he'd be asking for, I mean, it wouldn't make sense, right? It just wouldn't make sense for the team. It wouldn't make sense for him. It just wouldn't make sense really on all sense. Like, I'm glad that I am glad that there is talk that Utah is exploring those free agents, like those kind of free agency options, right? They're going out there trying to see. I think really what we're seeing there is, I think they're casting a really long fishing line, see what they catch, see what starts slowly coming in their way, kind of see what kinds of players are going to want to come to Utah.
And only in a mentor role could I see a player like Marchand coming to Utah, but I don't know. And I think that quote from Bill Armstrong kind of poo-poos that a little bit, or at least deflects from it, if that is his true intention, is to try to sign him. But I think that goes against what we've been talking about there. All right, couple other points I want to make. I do want to talk about McBain, and also want to talk about Desnoyer, some injury updates there, some things going on. Also, Connor Ingram. We have so much to talk about on this show, but we're still going to go back and talk more about what Bill Armstrong had to say there. So stay tuned. More coming your way here on Locked On Mammoth. And today's show is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. You ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth at the same time. And, you know, one of the things that I like for me with Monarch Money was the everything in one app. You got to be like me. I mean, we've got a bank account here, a credit card here, a credit card there, a cable bill there, this or that. You're chasing all over the place. Your investment account is here. Your retirement might be with a different person. Monarch puts it all in one place. And that is one of my favorite things about it, because now you really get a complete picture by logging into one place. You can see where things are and you can take care of business from there. And it's a lot easier to understand the big financial picture that you have going for you. So I love it. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño here with you on Locked On Mammoth. Thanks for joining us. Hey, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. It doesn't cost you anything. It's absolutely free to follow along here during a critical period for the Utah Mammoth. GM Bill Armstrong talking this week about the draft and free agency. We're going to talk a little bit about Brad Marchand. We already did last segment. We'll get to more of it. We're going to talk about a McBain update in the contract situation there. A couple other guys, Caleb Desnoyer, something I want to talk about with him because it was also contained in this press conference, which I thought gave away a lot. But Robyn, one of the things that Bill Armstrong talked about at the very end of that video clip, and I think has got to be a keyword, not a buzzword, a keyword for fans, for the press, for the front office, and for the guys in that room is patience. They are not running out and winning a Stanley Cup, barring a miracle. They're not running out and winning a Stanley Cup next year. And they have to keep that in mind. This is about slow, steady, positive growth.
I mean, what have we talked about for the last several weeks, for even beyond that, Tom? And a very key word that we've used, timeline, right? We've talked timeline, and where it comes to the expectations of that timeline, saying that, okay, this Utah team is first year, they're going to be kind of like right there on the bubble outside looking into the playoffs. They might flirt with playoff for a while. They might look like they're going to make it in, but at the end of the day, they won't. Next year is okay. Now that we know what kind of team they were last year, it's like, okay, next year, push for the playoffs, make it in, try to make some noise, do what you can. Then you slowly make these steps. And this even goes to the years previously when they were still the Arizona Coyotes, or what steps they had to make to get to where they are now. Bill Armstrong has been huge on that and using that keyword of timeline, because you don't want to rush a rebuild. I think especially of the way he's been doing it. And I have been open about talking about how much I like that he's doing it, is building through the draft. Some general managers out there will just go willy-nilly and sign free agents like crazy and say, yeah, let's go try to win a Stanley Cup with free agents. And sure, that could work. But if you're looking for the long-term future to try to really build something, getting something off of the draft and really building it over time in these increment periods, I mean, it makes all that much sense.
It does. And those are the teams that win. I mean, again, the Edmonton Oilers, and look, they haven't even won a cup and they're already starting to pay the piper. They had to make a trade to move Evander Kane to get his salary out of there. They're probably going to move Arvidsson's salary out of there. They're already rearranging chairs on that ship because they're going to have to pay McDavid. They're going to have to pay Bouchard. They're going to have to pay Trent Frederick. They're going to have to pay a goalie. Probably not one of the two they have. You know, there's going to be things they have to do. Well, Utah's not even there yet, but here's the nice thing, and this is another point from that clip, is Bill Armstrong's thought was, I don't want to handcuff myself to a guy for whatever the price is. He used $9 million, but whatever the price is, and not have that money to do what you said last segment, add that final piece later when they need it. Now, it's not like Utah's up against the wall here. There's room they can spend, but clearly he's thinking down the road. And this also makes me think, Robyn, that he already has built in that next big contract extension for Logan Cooley. And I would not be surprised, again, I'll say it again, I would not be surprised if that's announced before training camp or during training camp for Cooley.
Yeah, and if it's north of $8 million a year. Like,
it would make him the first $8 million guy among the forward core. Obviously, Sergachev, 8.5, but so far the magic number's been a little over 7 up front.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It'd be really interesting to see. I mean, the only thing is, I think Bill Armstrong has been known not to dish out those kinds of contracts. The only time he actually broke that was when he signed to Dylan Guenther. He broke that trend when he signed Dylan Guenther because he knew that Guenther was going to be part of the long-term future. So we're going to see that similar bucking of the trend because Logan Cooley is actually like, it's hard to compare because they're both different roles. Like they play different like kinds of roles within the team, but Cooley and Guenther, they have that similarity in terms of what roles they are going to play, though. They are going to be integral parts of this young core moving forward on this team. They are cornerstone pieces for this franchise, and you have to pay accordingly.
So let me bring it back to Brad Marchand through that lens then. Knowing that he's already said this team is too young to win a cup, is there value then at the right price in adding a Marchand to this team?
I think if it's at the right price, sure. Like if it's at a team-friendly deal, with the understanding of what kind of role he would play with the team. And again, and you said it, right? It would be a veteran, kind of like a veteran, like almost like on-ice coach kind of thing out there to teach the young guys of, especially in the way that Bill Armstrong wants them, right? He wants to see someone get more physical out there. Why not get a guy like like Brad Marchand? But again, I feel like with the rumors of what Brad Marchand is expecting to make in the next contract, I want to say it was like, I'm trying to think what it was like. It was a 3-year deal at a pretty high amount per year. I forgot. I can't think on the top of my head what the AAV he's expecting, but he wants at least 3 years.
Yeah, I've heard he wants 4, which is crazy. That would take him to age 42.
And I just don't think that's something Utah would be willing to go that far, especially with, again, what they have to focus on for the future with their other contracts. Like you mentioned, Logan Cooley, but there's also Josh Stone. There's going to be some of the other ones out there who are going to get some deals. They might not get, again, the high deals, the high dollar values like Guenther and Cooley, but they're still going to get paid.
My only thought is if you do bring in Marchand and it's not for a long term, but if it is the term he wants, the 3 years, it's just not a higher dollar value because I don't think it's worth $6 million or north of that, which it probably will be for him. But is there hope? Is there just maybe hope that you sit Marchand next to Lawson Krause and he gives him a little pat and says, "Hey, buddy, I'm going to take you under my wing and I'm going to try to teach you how to play the game the way I play the game," and maybe, hopefully, reignite something in Lawson Krause.
It's a nice thought. I mean, the thing is, Lawson Krause, like I said, like you and I have got a chance to see his career from a young kid all the way to where he is now. I mean, and you and I got the experience of him and during his years with the Tucson Roadrunners. God, that feels like such a long time ago, but it's, but you're right. Maybe having a player like Brad Marchand could kind of do the ignite a little bit, especially where yeah, there are different play styles. Like you said, Marchand's that pest style kind of gets more in your face. Krause is a scoring power forward who kind of just they share similarities, but they're also still different kinds of players. But I do want to say I just looked it up. I saw on Deseret.com, they're in their sports page, and it says that according to this article, so before the Stanley Cup, Elliot Friedman reported that Marchand was looking for a 3-year deal worth $8 million, but now it's saying it could be higher. And I'm like, nope, not worth it. Yeah. Do not give that much money.
No, I heard at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs, Marchand was pretty vocal about wanting 4 years. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he figures he can cash in on his cup win. For him, as a human being, good. Go get
it. There is a team that will pay that. There is a team that will pay that.
There is. They will. Toronto will. You're right. Leafs will.
Toronto will.
Toronto will
get bounced. And then they'll get bounced out of the second round again.
Still get bounced. Yep. Somehow. I don't know. All right.
Just now watch Toronto fans are going to come and swarm this video.
Yeah, I know, right?
They have ears like a hawk.
Yeah,
ears like a hawk.
Here, we're going to trade you all of our AHL affiliate for your 3 best players. Yeah, okay, great. So, all right, we're going to talk about Desnoyer, talking a little bit about a wrist injury and why he did not participate in the scouting combine, but where that might stand now, plus an update on the McBain contract status, and we'll wrap things up here in just a moment.
Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Ruggie Get Ready. Ruggie Get Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugie's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If the traditional options just haven't worked, Ruggie might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feeling more confident and present in the moment. Head to Ruggie.com/LockedOnNHL and use code LockedOnNHL. You can get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL. Use promo code LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Ruggie website for full safety information.
Okay, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño back here with you. This is Locked On Mammoth. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for subscribing. Hey, and also, if you like the show, please tell your friends. Even if you don't like the show, tell your friends. Tell them what idiots we are and invite them to come listen. That's fine with me. So we get comment bombed. I get comment bombed. Robyn gets love bombed in the comments, and I get told that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, which is just fine. Hey, at least you're here and you're checking out the show. I appreciate that. So, Robyn, let's get to a couple of things. First of all, Caleb Desnoyer, who's been linked to the Mammoth at the number 4 pick, which, by the way, in the press conference, I thought it was really funny when one of the local media, I won't name them, said, so since the first 3 picks of the draft are decided, and he goes, oh, Bill Armstrong. Oh, they are? Who you got? Who's number 1 through 3? I didn't know that. Just kind of, ripped on him a little bit for that. And I mean, I understand nothing is set in stone, right? No. Nothing is ever set in stone.
There's a small consensus, but yeah, it's not set in stone.
No, not by any means. But that's why I think Desnoyer revealing that he had an injury in both wrists, was over 67% of faceoffs, did an incredible job, put up a crazy amount of points, led his team all the way to the Memorial Cup final, and did it with basically 2 bad wrists from November on. So said if he needs surgery or rehab, he's going to go get that done. He went to go get a medical opinion if he needs to do rehab, but he thinks he should be good to go. Obviously, he was able to play through it for 5 months. So, Robyn, in a way, this kind of just made his season a lot more impressive. To be that good in the face-off circle, to be as dominant as he was out on the ice, and kind of have 2 bum wrists while you're doing it. That almost makes me really, really think, man, he's better than what he showed at 100% health. And that, I don't know, depending on what the injury is. And Bill Armstrong went out of his way to say, look, we will satisfy ourselves with a medical, with our staff, with our trainers, with our doctors before we pick anybody. But I don't know, does that put you off, Desnoyer? Does it worry you at all? Is it just something that happens? What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting, Tom, because a couple of thoughts have come across my head, and one of them is like, it's kind of laughing a little bit, because then I'm like, classic hockey player move, right? Because that's what hockey players do. They brush off an injury and they just keep playing because they know that because their team is depending on them. But the issue that I have with that, Tom, is like, at what point do we know is that too far, right? At what point do we know, hey, they're trying to hide and all of a sudden it gets hurt, an injury can get worse or whatever, and that player can't not play, and it puts them out long term. We've seen that happen, right? Even if they play well, it does concern me in that level of like, where's the line here? Where's the line on this kind of player? And are they at risk of being injured a little bit more? Like and I feel like for a lot of general managers, that's a legitimate concern.
Well, and there's always something with hockey players, right? There's always a bump, there's always a bruise, there could be something nagging, but that's kind of the question. Is how bad is it? How long is it going to be around? How fast can you fix it? Can you fix it? I guess that could all go into it, but I mean, I don't know. I think that makes the season that much more impressive that he played through it, and hopefully it didn't make it worse, though. Hopefully it didn't make it worse for Desnoyer's sake, but that actually kind of elevates his status, I think, for me a little bit. I was kind of surprised to hear that. So.
It does elevate his status because, again, he had a good season nonetheless, right? He had a really good season nonetheless. But like that's and I think the other thing too, and this is in my head playing devil's advocate, looking, it's like, okay, that's one thing, but let's look on the other side here, where those are the everydayers. Heck, that you even listened to yesterday's episode. Tom told you to listen to it at the beginning of this show, for God's sake. When I talked with World Scouts, and they came to the agreement that most of these players, especially those that are drafted from from 3 and beyond, 1 and 2, you can really depends on what expectations are for those players. But for these rest of the players, you're not going to expect them to hit the ice for, maybe 2 years, 2-3 years at the minimum. We're more talking 3, 4, maybe 5 years. You don't see them until they hit NHL ice. It takes a while, and I know people hate when I say this because they're like, and what's the point of getting these kind of, just, there is a lot that goes into these NHL drafts, especially at this point. It's not as impactful as the NBA draft can be, but there still is some pretty big impacts that can be made. But 4 to 5 years still, and I think especially if you are the Utah Mammoth, to you, it's nice to kind of add a little bit to your arsenal for down the road later on when, let's say, 5 years from now, you're going to have another aging forward, like who's close to the end, who's closer to the end of their career, or at least maybe at the end, but like maybe on the decline. They reach their peak and they're on the decline. Like, you want someone who can be their protege, who can replace them. You want to be able to have that in your arsenal as soon as they're able to.
Absolutely. Oh, one thing I did want to add about Desnoyer too is if he goes back to junior, will be the captain for Moncton. But I've heard, and I'm trying to remember if it's BU or BC, I think it's Boston College, has interest in trying to bring Desnoyer into the program there too. So sometimes you do have to be a little careful about that, but a guy of that kind of caliber is not going to stay 4 years at a university. You're not going to end up losing his draft rights. I wouldn't imagine. You'll pick him and he'll probably leave after a year or two, but you never know. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, I want to get real quick to Jack McBain. That was also brought up later in the press conference. Robyn, again, I think certain members of the local media have read too much into the negative on this. And basically saying, oh, there's no progress or it doesn't sound good based on what Bill Armstrong said, because Bill Armstrong said, his agents are doing their job, essentially. I'll paraphrase. They're tough negotiators. But the thing that I heard that seems to be ignored is that we, meaning Utah Mammoth personnel, think that McBain and his camp have been pretty happy with the talks. And for some reason that got glossed over. I think Jack McBain is back in a Mammoth uniform next year. I think it's going to require some back and forth, but I don't see Jack McBain leaving at this point based on the comments I heard. So it's interesting, though, to think if you put Simachev and But and McBain all back on that roster, and then you leave room for maybe one of the Tucson guys from last year to make that jump on a full-time basis. Robyn, your roster is almost pretty much set. You might not be looking for a ton of stuff in free agency unless you make a trade that involves personnel out.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of a nice position to be in, right? That you don't have to worry too much about some instability, because a lot of fans will be so upset to have some players get shipped out or other things, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my god, I just got a Utah Mammoth jersey with this player's name on it and they're no longer here. Like, I know some people that upsets them a lot. It would upset me too, by the way, a crazy amount. But regarding Jack McBain, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm glad to hear that they're making positive steps forward, that they're still talking. I've kind of already said it, and I think I just kind of reiterate it too. In a worst case scenario for Jack McBain is at the first offer, what if he doesn't files for arbitration, allows them to keep talking and keep negotiating until the arbitration period, which it's like a very, 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 very little chance to even go to the arbitration room. They will have a deal.
Yes, I believe so. I believe that is correct. So don't panic yet. Another update that came out, by the way, just very briefly, is that there's no real update on Connor Ingram. So nothing really new to share. I know last week it was reported he's playing some men's league hockey, trying to get back into shape. But as far as the Mammoth are concerned, they still haven't had really any contact with him. And, that was the other thing is Bill Armstrong made it kind of clear that he really didn't want to comment on the situation yet. But I don't know, Robyn. It's just a non-update update. I know that, but I know everybody's wishing him the best.
Yeah, I feel like everyone does, but I think at the same time, even though there is it's been reported by multiple people, I think even Craig Morgan included, who's covered the team for us, for longer than really anyone has. Right, has pretty much said that there is reason to believe that he will be back in the Mammoth uniform. It's just that we just don't know yet where his exact timeline. But he seems to be pretty confident, which is a good news. But at the same time, I think there should be at least a little bit of preparation to have another backup goalie in place, just in case.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that is a full episode of Locked On Mammoth. Robyn, is there anything else you want to wedge in to this already tightly packed container?
No, just gotta say, now we're kind of within that 24 to 36 hours, depending on when you're actually listening to this episode, period, from when the NHL draft begins. So it's an exciting time to be here. And just to be sure to stay locked on right here to Locked On Mammoth. We'll have full coverage of the draft and even leading up to free agency, because free agency only just days away as well.
Robyn, it's crazy. This whole thing is going to go so fast, but it's going to be so busy. I can't wait. So, hey, whatever your thoughts are on what we said today, you can either drop them in the comments on the YouTube side and hit that thumbs up while you're there. But also, Robyn, where can they reach us on social media if they want to reach out?
Yeah, you can find us just about everywhere on social media, primarily on Twitter. That's where I monitor the Twitter almost every single day. You can find us there at Locked On Mammoth. Everywhere else at the same at, which is once again at Locked On Mammoth. You can find me personally at Robyn_Leaño.
And I'm at Tom Talks on Blue Sky, at Callahan on Air on Twitter. I am guilty of not really checking my Twitter that often, but I actually just did open the tab before we started taping the show, and I'm like, oh, I have people to respond to. So feel free to reach out to us there. We appreciate you being here, and don't forget, Robyn and I coming up on our Friday episode here. It is 0 hour. It is time for the draft, and we are going to give you who our final selections would be at number 4. And then we will see, well, what happens starting on Friday night with round number 1. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you next time on Locked On Mammoth.